Boom.
What's going on, everyone? It's the UFC Casuals back with our recap from UFC 285, Saturday night's event. It was a loaded card, and it delivered. We had some good fights. There was a big debut on it. That's a title fight upset and a lot more. So we'll jump right into the main event. Man, Jon Jones made that look easy. What did you make of that fight?
I mean, yeah, made it look easy and quick. I mean, we talked about, hey, Gane had to keep this standing because if he gets taken down, it's a big issue for him. And they just didn't stand long enough. I mean, Jon got him down, and I mean, from that point forward, like Gane didn't look like he was getting back up. And I mean, he just got controlled against the cage. Jon got that good guillotine, and it was wraps from there, man.
Yeah, I was thinking, all right, Gane can get taken down here and there. He might get subbed at some point, but I didn't think he would go out after the first takedown. I mean, Jones did that with no effort, it seemed like. He ducked a punch, got behind his back, took him down, and ended up turning into a guillotine and ended the fight in like 2 minutes. Ridiculous stuff. Yeah, I think I overestimated Gane and how much he would been practicing his takedown defense. I thought it'd be better than that. Clearly, it wasn't. And I think I underestimated Jones. I know we've been saying he's the GOAT, but a 3-year layoff is no joke. A 40-pound increase is no joke. But that didn't seem to bother him at all.
It didn't bother him at all. And I mean, like you said, those were definite question marks. We couldn't just go into this fight expecting Jon Jones to look that dominant when he's, like you said, been gone 3 years, jumping up massive amounts of weight. I mean, we didn't really get to see the striking enough, but I've seen people saying he did look a little slower in the striking, so that's why he maybe, went back to basics and took him down. I don't know. We didn't get to see enough of the striking Jon Jones in this fight. He needs to fight someone with better takedown defense, and I think he'll get that in his next fight with Stipe Miocic. But yeah, I mean, Jon just looks so good. Gane had no answer to the one takedown, couldn't get back up, and yeah. I mean, it didn't even look like a very great guillotine. Like, he didn't have both hooks in. He just must be so strong, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said we didn't get to see his striking. That's true. We also didn't really see him take a hit. I think maybe Gane landed one significant strike, but we didn't see, how his chin would hold up over the course of a fight against a heavyweight. He didn't even let it get to that point. He handled that so quick. So there's still questions, I'd say. I mean, there's still some things like, hey, man, what are we going to see going into the Stipe fight? I don't think he'll put away Stipe as quick as he did Gane. But yeah, we're still yet to see how he'll look taking punches from heavyweights. But on Saturday's fight, if that was any indication of what we'll see going forward with Jon Jones, I don't see anyone at heavyweight stopping him.
I think it's going to take someone who can stop a takedown, obviously. I mean, there's so many brawlers in the heavyweight division that I look at someone like Curtis Blades or Tom Aspinall, like guys with good wrestling bases. That seems like the only guys that can possibly give Jon Jones a good fight at heavyweight. I mean, there's always the threat of getting hit, like heavyweight power. But other than that, I mean, I think Jon Jones ragdolls a lot of guys in this division.
Yeah, well, we know what the case is for his next fight. We know he's going to be fighting Stipe Miocic. That's not a question. That seems to be set in stone already, unless something comes up where one of the two can't fight. But yeah, his next fight, Stipe. Blades versus Pavlovich. That'll have some impact on a future title shot. I'd say the winner of that's probably next in line to get a title shot. So yeah, this is an interesting road ahead for the heavyweight division. So what was your prediction from the Jones fight? It was round 4 TKO, right?
I did have Jon Jones round 4 TKO. I knew there was going to be wrestling in this matchup. So but I didn't think one takedown would lead to a submission that quickly. I mean, 2 minutes, right? So I thought this would be a brutal wrestling warfare. I thought he would wear Gane down, and I thought there would be much more striking. I thought we would learn a lot more in this fight. We know that Jon Jones is dominant, and we know that he's the GOAT now, right? But we didn't learn a lot about him at heavyweight in terms of striking. But, I mean, yeah, I thought he would wear Gane down, knock him out later in the fight. I mean, he wasted no time.
Oh, none at all. And you had a better prediction than I did. I wasn't as confident that he'd be able to come back from that 3-year layoff and increase in weight so well, but he proved me very wrong. And I'm excited to see him in his next fight against Stipe. That's gonna be fun. And where does Gane go from here? That's another question we have from after this fight. That was a tough loss. That wasn't like, a fight that he barely lost, like the Ngannou fight or anything. He got crushed, and there was no question about it. So it's going to be a much tougher road back to a title shot for him now than it was after the Ngannou fight.
Yeah, I mean, where do you go from here? You got to work on your wrestling. Like, this has been a major problem in both of his title fights now. I mean, we discussed, a non-wrestler at all in Ngannou taking him down and laying on him for 3 rounds. Like, we knew this was going to be an issue. And, I mean, you talked about, hey, hopefully he's working on this in camp. I mean, you could tell us that he didn't, and we'd probably believe it because, I mean, it looked like he was never going to get back up after that takedown.
No,
and,
not at all.
So where do you go from here? I mean, do you just want to fight strikers and have, great, amazing fights and just be like a, gatekeeper in the heavyweight division? Or do you want to work on that wrestling and eventually someday get another shot at Jon Jones? I don't know where you should go from here.
Yeah, it's tough to say what the future holds. I think he'll probably fight the loser of Blades and Pavlovich next. I'd say that's his next fight in line. And then after that, who knows where we'll go from there. That'll be up in the air. Our next fight we'll be covering is Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso, the biggest upset of last night. I think might be the only upset, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was the only upset on the main card, that's for sure. And man, we did not expect that. Shevchenko, she looked good. She was winning the rounds, I'd say. She was probably up in the rounds. But, man, Grasso got her on that, spinning kick. She jumped on her back, got the rear naked choke, and I don't even think she sunk it under the chin, and she still was able to finish the fight.
Yeah, it wasn't even under the chin. I mean, I sent you that picture yesterday. It was like squeezing her chin so hard, like her chin was white and the rest of her head was like tomato red.
Yeah.
That must have been a death squeeze that Grasso had on her there. I mean, we predicted domination, really. I know we talked about, hey, Grasso is a good boxer. And I think I mentioned that maybe the stand-up would be closer than, some people thought it would be. But I never in a million years would have predicted, Grasso taking Valentina down. Which, to be fair to Valentina, she was wrestling good. Like, she was getting Grasso down in the earlier rounds. But Grasso, I mean, and all it takes is one mistake. She was way too close to her distance-wise to be throwing that spinning kick, and she paid for it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'd say Grasso looked a lot better on the feet. And Valentina, she ended up having to wrestle that fight, but that still ended up being her demise. She went down to a submission. That was a very interesting outcome. Not one that many people expected, not one that Vegas expected. I know Grasso was a big underdog, but yeah, we'll be looking forward to a rematch probably in this one in the coming months. So that'll be fun to see. I had Valentina by decision. That was my prediction. I was wrong again. I think you had the same one, if I'm not mistaken.
I had her winning. I said domination 50-43. I mean, I thought she would. Yeah, like I knew the striking was going to be close just because I knew Grasso was a good boxer. I mean, that's her strength. Mm-hmm. But I never in a million years, like I said, did I expect the wrestling to be close at all. I thought Valentina would take her down and ground and pound her, and I didn't think she'd get the finish, but I thought she would dominate this fight, and she just clearly didn't. It was much closer even-wise than I ever could have predicted.
Yeah. Well, we love seeing a good upset, especially in a title fight. Always exciting. Now on to your boys, Shavkat Rakhmonov against Jeff Neal. What a fight. Earned Fight of the Night honors on Saturday. Man, great performance, I'd say, from both fighters. Shavkat looked great offensively. His pressure was outstanding. Jeff Neal, his chin held up. Both of those fighters looked great. Shavkat ended it with a pretty crafty submission on the feet. That was fun. What do you make of that fight?
Yeah, like I mentioned in the preview, man, I mean, Jeff Neal's had 7-8 fights in the UFC, and he had never been finished. And you could clearly see why. I mean, his chin held up, like you mentioned. His takedown defense was great. I mean, that was a factor in this fight that I thought would play a major role, was Shavkat's wrestling. And Jeff Neal stuffed those takedowns. But, yeah, Shavkat's forward pressure, he was winning all the rounds because of that forward pressure, I'd say. And then in the third, he finally took Neal's back and got a great choke on him.
Got his 17th submission. He had all 17 fights, all ended in a submission for him. another one. So he'll need to get a knockout in his next fight to balance it out again. So it's 9-9. But one of my concerns that I have with Shavkat after watching the fight was the lack of defense. I know he looked really relentless, but he ate a lot of shots, and I'm concerned about that in a potential fight against another like top welterweight. That scares me against some guys who have some serious power, like Gilbert Burns, for example. He almost put out Hamzat in one of their fights. So yeah, I'm concerned about that, but overall, Shavkat looked great.
Yeah, I mean, his chin did hold up even though he was getting hit. And like you mentioned, there are some big strikers, or not big strikers, but big hitters with a lot more power than Jeff Neal in the top 5 of this division. But me personally, I would like to see Shavkat fight Colby Covington. And that's not a fight that, the striking is going to be too much of a threat to him. I think they're both just such balanced fighters in all aspects of their game, and that would make for an amazing fight, and the pace would be crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Looking back at our predictions from that fight, I had Shavkat by a round 2 submission. So I was off by a round, but, I still had the right method of victory. Still had the right fighter there. Not too much of a surprise.
Yeah, I had a second round finish too. I went the knockout route. I just knew that Shavkat would be so relentless in this fight, and he would look for the finish because he wanted to keep that 100% finish rate, So it didn't get the KO like I expected, but like you mentioned, he's got to have to try and even that out in this next fight.
Absolutely. Moving on, we have Jalen Turner versus Mateusz Gamrot. Man, that was a short notice fight for both of those guys, so I'm not going to hold it too much against Turner, and I'll give props to Gamrot for pulling out a win in a short notice fight. His offensive wrestling looked great. He had a lot of ground control in that fight, and I'd say he deserved the win. I had him up 29-28 in the scorecards. What'd you make of that fight?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it was a classic kind of wrestler versus striker matchup. You said Turner would want to keep the distance, unfortunately. Gamrot's entries were amazing with some of his left hands. I thought his jab was on point in that fight, and it helped him get close and get those takedowns. We knew that would be a major factor if he could get Turner down. Turner was always going to be looking for this to be a striking matchup because that's probably what he prepared for. He was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. He was expecting a stand-up war, if you had to guess. So, short notice fight, you can't really take away from Jalen Turner. I'm excited to see him get back in there against maybe not a wrestler next time.
Yeah. Well, I could see them rescheduling that fight against Gamrot. That would make a lot, or not Gamrot, sorry, Hooker. That would make a lot of sense. But yeah, Gamrot's wrestling looked great. That ground control is what I'd say won him the fight. Turner tried to keep it off the ground. He tried to keep it on his feet, but only so much he could do in that one. But yeah, my prediction, I had Turner by decision. I was wrong there. I think we both had the same prediction, right?
Yeah, I had him winning by decision too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think both of us were going with our hearts on that one a little bit too much. I'm a Turner fan. I like him. I was rooting for him. But I don't mind the decision. I think it was 29-28 Gamrot, so I'm happy with how it ended up.
Yeah, I thought, we mentioned that Gamrot's probably only path to victory was, to wrestle and get a decision. We knew he probably wouldn't finish Turner. He doesn't have a great finishing record. I guess we should have probably predicted that if it did go to decision, it would have been to Gamrot because that would probably have meant there was going to be a lot of wrestling. And we knew that Gamrot's, he would probably win the wrestling exchanges, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, moving on to our last main card fight we're covering, Bo Nickel versus Jamie Pickett, the debut of Bo Nickel. The nut shot aside, looking past that, he got us round 1 submission. I think it's what a lot of people expected. He looked good on the ground. It took him a while to get that submission to force Pickett to tap, but nevertheless, still got it down in round 1. What do you make of that fight?
Yeah, I was surprised Pickett, didn't tap to that arm triangle. I mean, it was tight the whole time, really. And he didn't, get into full side control and get major power on it. But, I mean, hey, that's a collegiate national champion wrestler squeezing on your neck with his shoulder. I mean, that's had to be serious pressure. He survived much longer than any of Nickel's previous opponents. And, yeah, I mean, this is about what he expected. He did knee him in the dick. That happened, and they did not stop it. But I don't think that affected the outcome of this fight.
Not too much. I still think Bo would have won. Same method, same round. Yeah, bad. Big miss by the ref there, but overall, not the end of the world. I don't think it's would have changed much. Yeah, but props to Pickett though. He sat in that arm triangle for a while. That was relentless by him, but Bo Nickel in the end he came out on top, about what we expected to see. I had Nickel by round one submission. I hit that one. I got the fighter, the round, and the method. I think we both had the same one, in fact, on that one. So good on us. Hate to pat ourselves on the back there, but 3 for 3 there.
Bang. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Moving on to some prelim notes we have. Garbrandt, in his return to bantamweight, picks up a win against Trevor Jones in decision. And Derek Brunson, sorry, I mentioned the Knicks point guard almost. Derek Brunson, retiring from the UFC at 39. He's had a pretty long career. Some good memories, Blonde Brunson, his trademark pose. So happy retirement to him.
Happy retirement, great fighter. Never got his title shot like he probably would have wanted, but had put up some good fights against top 5 guys. He was always a fringe top 5 fighter.
Oh yeah, he hung around the middleweight ranks for a while, so good on him. And that's pretty much all we have for our coverage of UFC 285 today. We'll see you guys when we're covering UFC 286 in less than 2 weeks. We're looking forward to it.
I can't wait. Pound for pound, headshot dead, repeat, part 2. Let's see what happens.
Part three.
Part three.
Yeah, we forget about the first one.
Yeah.
Man, so we're excited for that. We'll see you guys then.
See ya.